little bit more and recommend better trees. So for the landscape setting, some of my trees that I see that have worked well in landscape settings that are a little bit smaller would be the maple varieties that are more of the 15 to 20, 25-foot heights. A myrrh maple would be an old standard that I'd think of. Shantung maple, trident maple. There's different ones that I've seen growing in the arboretums that would do well. Also, one that I've kind of started liking, especially if you have a little wetter area or maybe at the corner of the house off a downspout, would be river birch. That way, you've got the birch, but you don't have to worry so much about the bronze birch borer. And then another one would be the smaller growing type oaks that can grow in those settings. And really, we're looking at maybe one or two trees in the front yard, one or two trees in the backyard if you have a limited landscape. Then stepping over to the conservation trees or trees out in the country. I call these the working trees because they're out there on the forefront fighting the snowstorms and the dust winds and all the other environmental problems that might come out in the country. These trees have to be the toughies. They have to be the ones that when you plant them out there, maybe give them a couple years care, but after that, they're kind of on their own, exposed to whatever Mother Nature's going to throw at them. So with those, I'm usually looking at recommending, or my favorite trees would be more the native for a backbone of a shelter belt around a farmstead or out for livestock or for wildlife in eastern Nebraska, where we don't have the large prairies and we don't have the large pasture areas. Eastern red cedar is going to be one of the toughest evergreens to plant. If it's next to corn and soybean fields or up and around by an area like a landscape that's taken care of, you don't have to worry about those seeds being dispersed a great distance from the trees. The second evergreen would be ponderosa pine. Up here in Antelope County and adjacent Pierce County and Stanton County, Holt County, we have a lot of old Prairie States Forestry Project windbreaks that have 60, 70, 80-foot tall ponderosa pines that are 80 to 90 years old. And just can't beat them for native pine for this country.
Steve, you're fading out a little bit.
Am I?
Yeah, that might be better. Okay, now it's
okay.
better.
Maybe I was leaning off to my right too far. So I'll lean to my left. And actually, I'll lean forward. And then for hardwood trees, again, looking at those that are tough, the bur oak, hackberry, honey locust, catalpa, black walnut actually does pretty well on a wide variety of soils. And we could sure incorporate those. And then for favorite type of shrubs, it'd be the American plum and the choke cherry. So that's for the conservation trees, trees out, working trees. The hybrid between the residential landscape and the countryside would be the acreage owners. And these we're seeing grow more and more in popularity, 5 to 10 acres in size. They don't have quite the space to work with like you do out in a true country setting, but they definitely have space to work with more than a tight residential lot. So there, I'd be looking at Douglas fir, which is a good evergreen to try in this area. I've got some 30-year-old Douglas firs that are 40 feet tall. Southwestern white pine. People know of eastern white pine, and eastern white pine is good, but quite honestly, this year, I've got winter burning, and some eastern white pines are actually dying because of the drought we've had for 3 years. The southwestern white pine look a little bit better. So for evergreens, those would be good ones for acreages. Then the different oaks, the acreage settings are good to have the different oak varieties represented. I'd mentioned bur oak. Also, I like shingle oak and also a swamp white oak and chinkapin oak. Those that are trees that'll do okay with a little bit of care to get them started, and then they'll go from there. American linden could be another one that you could put into that type of acreage. And I'm looking at my clock, Justin, because I don't want to have you cut me off right away. But the last one I'll finish up is what I'd consider somewhat of a generic tree that I've always tried to promote and encourage people, no matter what ownership they have. And that's a fruit tree. And dang it, if I was in charge of the government, I would give a tax credit to whatever acreage or whoever would plant 1 or 2 fruit trees on their property. And I just see a lot of advantages of having a fruit tree in the landscape. In a small backyard, they'll fit. Out on an acreage, they'll work. And out in the countryside, up and around by the home, they'll work. Different sizes. The standard ones get to be maybe 20 to 30 feet tall. Semi-dwarf would be the most common, probably 15 to 20 feet. And then you have the true dwarfs variety. But we can do a lot with fruit trees. They're great for pollinators. They have good spring color. You can even talk about homeland security because we're growing our own fresh, healthy food source. And the apple varieties that I've seen work pretty well are the disease-resistant apple varieties. There's Enterprise, there's Freedom, there's Liberty. University of Minnesota has come out with Honeycrisp. So a number of different apple trees. Pear trees, you've got Contender and Reliance that are winter hardy for this area. You got choices for pears of Flemish Beauty, Moonglow, Bartlett, and then cherries would be Montmorency, Meteor, and North Star. But if we could get everybody to plant a fruit tree in their backyard for themselves or their grandkids or their neighbors, we'd be a lot healthier society, and we'd have the benefits that those trees provide. That's my pitch.
Awesome, Steve. Wow, yeah, you were under 10 for sure. I love it. You got a lot done there. And maybe mention, you've planted so many trees and assisted so many public plantings in Northeast Nebraska. I've always been impressed, like the Concord Arboretum and the one at the Northeast Community College. Where are some places people can go see some of these trees?
Oh, yeah. Well, the best locations are the arboretums that are associated with the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum. And Nebraska Statewide Arboretum has a good website that you can go to, and you can find a close local arboretum. Up in this area, there's an arboretum within 50 miles of a person, usually in parks, sometimes associated with schools. Once you get into the more populated metro areas, you'll have a large selection of arboretums to choose from. But yeah, check out the Nebraska Statewide Arboretum, the affiliated sites, and there's an interactive map you can go to, click on it, and it'll tell you where they're at. And some of them will actually have descriptions.
Thank you, Steve. Some of my favorite tree places are Northeast Nebraska, like in Pender and the Concord Arboretum, Northeast Community College. Wow, I'm always amazed at all the trees that grow there that don't know they're not supposed to grow there. So,
and that's a good point, Justin. Whenever I had people that were wondering what they should put in their landscape, what type of tree, I would always suggest going to an arboretum different times of the year and walking through. Probably the best known one, the largest one up in this area, I'll put a plug in for, is Gilman Park at Pierce. Yeah. They have a huge selection. The soils are a sandy loam soil and somewhat centrally located in Northeast Nebraska. So if it grows in that arboretum, you've got a good chance of it growing at least in your backyard.
Right on. Thank you so much, Steve. That was awesome. Thanks for your time today. Hey, if you can stick around, we'll fly through everybody doing their presentation, but we'll take questions in the chat, people. If you want to have a question, we'll come back to them at the end, but maybe we'll just move on to our next presenter. Thanks, Steve. And that's going to be Kelly Feehan.
Okay.
Are you ready, Kelly?
Yep, I'll start sharing here. Let me get it. I don't know why it wants to be slow today. Ooh, it worked before, but now it's not working. Am I still did that work?
I see it coming on. We're going to be cooking with fire here pretty soon.
I don't know why it's so slow, but tell me when you see it. All
right. I see it.
Great. Wonderful. Okay. Well, thanks for inviting me, Justin. It's an honor to be invited to do this. I'm an extension educator here in Platte County in Columbus, like Justin said. I guess my love of trees came from, I grew up in northern North Dakota by the Canadian border, and my dad planted trees right and left, all the little seedlings, many rows, long rows, and I had to hoe them. for 25 cents a row. You think that make me not like trees, but it made me love trees. I guess I saw what they did, what they grew up into and how beautiful they were. So anyway, as a typical extension person, I probably have too many slides, but I'll go till I get gonged. So when I pick a tree, I have to like a characteristic about it. I always tell people, there's no perfect tree. There's pros and cons. Make sure you have the pros, you like the pros, and you can live with the cons. But there's definitely better trees than others. So I have to like some characteristic about it. It has to be a fairly tough tree. Maybe that's because I grew up in northern North Dakota. I kind of base trees on if they grow here in Pawnee Park, which is right along the river, very sandy. And in a park setting, they don't tend to get a lot of care or a lot of extra TLC, which is probably better for most trees anyway. So that's kind of how I pick them. And I know Kentucky coffee tree is, a favorite of many, many people. I read on a nursery site, it's a noble tree with a tropical flair. I wish I could remember so I could give them credit, but I can't remember the website. It has to be tough. You'll see on almost all my trees, I'll say that it adapts well to urban sites, poor soils, drought. With all their extremes in weather today and going forward, I think we need to, kind of focus on trees that we already know are adaptable. The ugly duckling into a beautiful swan. I had a local nurseryman say, I love that tree, Kelly, but it's hard to sell because it just looks like a stick in the pot. So when I recommend it to people, I tell them it might be an ugly duckling, but it'll grow into a beautiful swan. And as you know, it seems like my favorite trees are all trees that have fruit that a lot of residential homeowners anyway don't like. I don't mind them, but I do understand that. But with Kentucky coffee tree, there are male cultivars out there since they're a dioecious tree. So let's see, let me get on. Okay, I love ginkgo. The leaf shape, the yellow fall color, which is pretty reliable. Super tough tree. It's very urban adaptable. I understand they use it as a street tree in New York City because it's so urban adaptable and very tolerant to air pollution, which fortunately we don't have to worry a ton about in Nebraska. And I just like the history of it being a living fossil, I always tell 4-H kids, what's tougher, the dinosaurs or the ginkgo? Because the dinosaurs are extinct and ginkgo isn't. Sometimes it gets a bad name. People will say, well, it doesn't really support a lot of pollinators or caterpillars that support the songbirds and so on. And that is true. That's why it doesn't have any serious problems. But it's a really good tough tree, and we can plant other trees to support those pollinators. Yes, it grows very slow. And there's just you've probably heard about it's also dioecious. So male, female, and we want to get those male cultivars so you don't have those cones. And it is a conifer, so that fruit is actually technically a cone. Looks like a yellow plum to me. English oak, I put English oak in because we have one growing in Pawnee Park. And it was planted actually in honor of Alan Wilkie, who is, recognized for discovering the Taylor juniper. And it's growing wonderfully. It looks beautiful, and I love the leaves. Again, it's doing great in that tough site. It's one of those really large oaks, so you need probably more for an acreage or a park setting. It's an oak, so lots of pollinator and wildlife support. And again, on those, I tell people, sure, when they say, I don't want acorns, I'll say, well, it'll be 25 to 30 years before you have a huge crop. So I also love the northern red oak, another one that does awesome in Pawnee Park here. We have a lot of chlorosis in Columbus, as a lot of places in Nebraska do, and I have not seen chlorosis in northern red oak in the 43 years I've been here in Columbus. Reliable red fall color. A lot of people say oaks grow too fast, but red oak is probably the fastest growing of the oak, given the right conditions. And a lot of the trees would grow a little faster if we, wouldn't start with such large trees and plant them too deep. That's what I tell people. Tolerates clay, dry sites, alkaline soils, and it can take these trees about 40 years before you get a heavy mass crop. We can't guarantee that, but that's a possibility. It takes them a while to get those heavy crops. Ohio Buckeye, again, another one that grows in Pawnee Park. So I know it's tough. I know it does well. And they do say in too much drought, you can get some leaf scorch, early leaf drop, and that is true, but it never seems to affect the trees in the Ohio Buckeye in Pawnee Park that are growing almost on pure sand and get zero irrigation once they're established. So yes, that I do see that scorch on the edges and I do see some early leaf drop, but they perform well otherwise. They'll get that prickly nut. They're a little bit pricklier than the picture shows, but sometimes they have not very many prickles and some. I don't think that's that big of an issue. They're easy to pick up. Seems like the squirrels take care of them. I'm always trying to collect some to use with 4-H projects and so on, and then they're never there. The squirrels get them before I do in many cases. So if you have squirrels in the neighborhood, you might not have to deal too much with these other than the husk. There are some early glow. I'm technically not familiar with it, but I've read about it, that it has red fall color and lower fruit production. So I can't attest to that because I don't have experience with it. Shagbark hickory. This is not one growing in Pawnee Park, but it is growing up at the Arboretum at Concord, right, Steve? You can give me a thumbs up. Yeah. And I've seen it up there, and so I really like it. I like trees with compound leaves, kind of a little bit of a tropical appearance, like that Kentucky coffee tree. That shaggy bark, as you can see in the picture, they're underplanted. So I also like trees that are not overplanted. If they're going to hit my favorite trees list, it has to be something that it's not overplanted. So, because that can cause issues, with diseases and insects and so on. We don't have as much biodiversity. Another one of those tough trees. I have this on almost all my slides, that it tolerates those alkaline and clay soils, dry sites. This one will tolerate some flooding as well as drought. It too has the edible nuts, so wildlife support. Another very large tree. So probably not for smaller residential areas, but some of those larger landscapes or city parks and so on. This might be a weird one, silver linden. I'd really like to know people's experience here, so pipe in. The reason I put this one out, first of all, I love it. The picture I took here is on UNL East Campus in their Arboretum. And every time I go there, it looks like a beautiful tree. So other than maybe availability, I haven't really heard any, negative things about it. It's supposed to be have the best drought tolerance of the lindens. When Japanese beetles were so bad in Lincoln, I would ask people on campus, are you seeing a lot of damage on the silver linden? Because they kind of have that fuzzy tomentose gray underside. And I can't swear by this, but I had some people say, yeah, it doesn't seem like it has as much damage. So maybe the beetles don't like to feed on it quite as much because of that fuzziness. And that's kind of more of a guess than anything. But people on campus did say they hadn't noticed as much damage on it that they could recall anyway. Lindens have those fragrant June flowers, the bee tree. Bees love it, and it adapts well to urban sites. So it's great to grow lindens. I like American linden too, and both silver and American. Grow them to the ground. Let those branches grow to the ground if you can. For a smaller tree, I like American hop hornbeam. These are in Des Moines, Iowa, where I took this picture. So it's a little bit smaller tree if you need that. The flowers are not ornamental, but it has this ornamental hop-like fruit in June. I took this picture in June, so that comes on fairly early. You might know it as ironwood because it has very hard, dense wood. So it grows a little slower. But it's another tough tree. It will tolerate clay soil, dry sites, alkaline soil. So, and I like the foliage. I like the birch-like leaves too. Apple serviceberry. It's because of the 4th season of interest. There's a lot of great serviceberries out there. This is one growing in my yard, so I have experience with it. That vivid orange fall color was pretty reliable almost every single year. And birds love that fruit. If you think you're going to enjoy it, yeah, good luck. but it's great for the birds. Another tough tree, dry sites, alkaline soil. Autumn brilliance is, one that we hear about a lot, but a couple of other good ones are the Princess Diana and Robin Hill. And Robin Hill will be red to yellow fall color. And it's a good replacement tree for those ornamental pears because it blooms white early in the spring. And that's a reason a lot of people like ornamental pears for that early white bloom. So this is a good replacement and a better tree for that. I like that. Yep.
1 minute left, Kelly.
Oh, okay, I'm almost done.
Yeah.
Where's the gong?
Yeah, I
wanna
need
hear
a
the
gong.
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 Okay, anyway, Japanese tree lilac, I do like because I've seen it growing in city parks and up in Yankton, South Dakota. This picture I took in Omaha. So pretty tough growing conditions in these near a parking lot. We have it growing in some boulevards here in Columbus. And it's doing well. So tolerating those urban sites, tough tree. Another smaller growing tree blooms in May, June when a lot of other things aren't blooming yet. And ivory silk's the most common cultivar we hear about, but there are some others there that are also available. Bald cypress, soft, this Pawnee Park tree, one Pawnee Park tree in pure sand, no water. We think of, yes, bald cypress will also grow in very wet soils, but they actually prefer a little bit sandier soil, and I can attest to that with how well they do in Pawnee Park here in Columbus. They are deciduous, so they do get the fall color. That's what the picture is, the fall color. And then all those needles drop off, and they're bare in the winter. Pretty large tree. And I was glad to hear Steve say he likes southwestern white pine because I don't have much experience with it. But the local nurseryman here said they're having great success with it, a little bit better success than the limber pine, or at least what's the common one? I'm sorry. The limber pine that everybody's planting, but they're having a little bit better success with it, and it looks nice. It has good form. Other than that, I didn't know a whole lot about it. So when Steve said he's having pretty good success with it, I was very glad to hear that. To it. On top of that, I'll add that to my knowledge. And I think that's it.
That was awesome, Kelly.
Hopefully I didn't talk too fast so everybody could understand what I said.
Yeah, you did great. I love all those trees. And you might have been thinking about Vanderwolf limber pine that struggles a little bit, or.
Did I stop sharing?
Yeah, go ahead and stop sharing.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my. There we go. I got out of my PowerPoint before I did it. My only options right now are to share, but you're still seeing me? You're still seeing my PowerPoint?
I'm still seeing your screensaver.
Okay, here we go. I have to go to my other screen. That's why.
There you go. Thank you. Good work.
Yep.
Kelly, just one quick question. We got to move on to Kent here, but are you getting people to plant these trees? Especially.
Yeah, some people.
Okay.
And then the fruit, like I said, a lot of them have fruits, and it's still tough to get some people to plant trees with those messy fruits. But yeah. Yes, I have a list, and I give the list out, and I have had people tell me they plant some of them.
Awesome. Thank you. I love your work. I love your trees. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
All right, Kent, you're up next, and you've intrigued us with your approach here. So take it away.
Okay, I will try not to disappoint. Thank you, Justin, for having me on. I appreciate the invitation. So I'm going to start out. I'm going to do kind of like folks that came before me. I'm going to talk about a couple of specific trees. So the one on the left, and I assume, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. So the one on the left is swamp white oak. This is in my backyard. And I really like it because of I guess the leaf texture, the back, that it's just a cool tree. It's a cool oak. Has a lot of the good properties that oaks have. And I wanted to specifically kind of single out the fact that this particular tree started out, if you can see my pointer, I mean, it was about 5 feet tall when it was planted. This is one of Heather's trees from her nursery. And it is probably 25 feet tall at least right now. So this is 5 years old. So it's not terribly old, but it has, once it got established, it put on remarkable amounts of growth, and just love the tree. But the one thing I wanted to point out was about Japanese beetle resistance. And I would say 3 years ago, this tree got attacked fairly significantly. I would say it probably got about 50% defoliated from Japanese beetle. The year after that, there was a significant reduction in the amount of damage. And the damage was really just kind of peripheral at the ends of branches where the newer the newer twigs were, and some of the newer leaves that came out. And this past year, the damage was even less. And so seeing very much a tree's reaction and building its own resistance and making it so that Japanese beetles don't want to attack this tree anymore. And then if you focus over on the right side, I put in a row of hazelnuts. There's 5 of them here in our backyard again, right close to the swamp white oak, but they also get attacked pretty significantly by Japanese beetle. But I'm seeing the same reaction there in terms of beetle resistance. The one right in the middle here, it's the largest one. It's actually the largest of the hazelnuts. Was almost completely defoliated, I want to say 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And since then, it has shown the same resistance, building resistance. And so some of the younger hazelnuts, we had to replace a couple of them. And these came from Harbor Day Foundation. So they were itsy bitsy little things. And the amount of beetle resistance that they continue to show is fascinating to me. So I throw them in there. They're a great screen plant. If I want to sit on my deck and I don't want to look at my neighbor, great screen plant for that. They produce a lot of hazelnuts. I think Bobby and I were anxious to harvest them and to do something with it. And then I realized that, I'm never going to beat the squirrels to them. And so the squirrels get them all. So it's just the way it is. Also want to point out, I didn't really have it on my list, but the tree over on the right side of the picture with the hazelnuts is a bitternut hickory. This one also came from Heather, I believe, and it has also done very well. And just enjoy the tree. I don't think we plant enough hickories in this part of the world, so yeah, just enjoy that. And then kudos to Steve for pointing out the Eastern red cedar. And I really like this tree for a number of reasons, but
Are you serious about that?
farm, what's that?
No, I'm just
Growing up on a farm in central Nebraska, when we wanted to establish a shelter belt, then we go out into the basically along the roads and the greater ditches and grub them out, throw them in the back of the pickup. Didn't really care whether the soil stayed on them or not. So we've got a pickup load of 50 of these things, and then take them back and heal them in and just let them go. I would say we probably had 95 or close to 100% survival. It's tough to kill these guys, which is part of the point. So those are great. Now, I promised Justin that I'd kind of go off the tracks here a little bit, perhaps. These are really my favorite trees coming up, and I'll just say my favorite tree is one that's got its physical structure to stand up to the 70+ mile-an-hour winds that came through Douglas County last July 31st. And my favorite tree is also one that can stand on its own. So from the very time that it's planted, it's also can sustain the injury from disease, from insects, like I just talked about with the Japanese beetle, and develop its own resistance. Because if you visited our campuses here, we don't we don't apply insecticides, and we don't stake them when they're first planted. We give them some good watering in the first year or so, and then they're on their own. And if they don't survive, then that contributes to our knowledge of trees. And so we maybe change up a few things, but that's the approach that we take. And then also, really the last point I wanted to make is my favorite tree is one that we give the opportunity to thrive. And instead of just digging a hole in the ground, we really look to amend the soil if we can when we start planting, and give that tree a chance to really thrive and build some resiliency. So with that, I'm done. And thank you again, Justin, for the opportunity to talk about trees. Always love that.
That's awesome,
Thank you,
Kent.
Heather,
Yeah, you've
providing
done
the
such
trees.
great work on those Douglas County sites. Maybe just mention where the sites are that you've been planting, and can people go visit the trees?
Sure. Yeah, there are two main campus sites. One is the County Health Center at 42nd and Woolworth. Basically, it would be the northeast corner of 42nd Woolworth, where you can see a lot of those trees, but also on the whole campus. And there's visitor parking there right next, and you can look at those trees. And then the other campus, which is the relatively new plantings, is at 156th and Maple and West Maple Road. And again, there's visitor parking there. Campus is open to the public, and we just started planting there, starting in basically about 2018. But we do a lot of planting every year, and we want to strive towards not only species diversity, but age diversity. So we're going to continue to put 40, 50 trees on our campus every year. So
Yeah, I love that,
kind of what we do.
I know you got a lot to do as the director of that group, but you take time for trees. Do you get support from people around you? And
absolutely, I've got a really good landscape manager, and Doc has been with us for a number of years, and does a great job maintaining them. We emphasize structural pruning, and every chance I get, I will do some education with our elected officials as to why we're doing certain things a certain way. Part of it is for sustainability and resilience, and part of it is because ultimately this costs the taxpayers less, and we get better trees out of the whole deal.
awesome, Kent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks again.
All right, we'll get you to stop sharing your screen, and then we'll get Heather ready.
Okay, I think I
Yeah,
backed out for that.
yep, you did. Thank you.
You bet. And thanks, Heather, for your trees. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
They look fantastic. You're doing a nice job taking care of them. All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, there we go. All right. Hi, I'm Heather Byers. I'm very excited to be here, especially because it's such an amazing panel of people. So I'm very honored to be a part of that. So the trees I'm going to talk about today have mostly to do with their function, not just for beauty. You know, oftentimes as homeowners, we are looking to improve the beauty of our property, and we're not always thinking about what else relies on those trees. So that's the approach that I'm going to take. These are all photos that we took at the nursery. It's just like a huge competition to see who can get the most wildlife photos within the trees. So it's super fun. So I have lots to go off of. Okay, number one, we're going to start with this chinkapin oak. This is a really nice medium-sized oak. You know, we know oak is our top keystone species when it comes to planting for wildlife, or oaks are vitally important, but chinkapin is oftentimes overlooked, and I think should definitely be planted more. It's extremely tough, drought tolerant, and it's that nice medium size. So maybe depending on the residential property, I think this one could fit in pretty nicely. Definitely on an acreage though. And with our parks and urban spaces. That's a caterpillar there that we found when we were out seed collecting one day. That's Brian in the background. That guy was humongous. And the tree doesn't care one bit about being chewed on. And so they just provide so much benefit to not only caterpillars being a larval host, but also as a as a wild or for the acorns. So blue jays, that's how we know when they are ready to be picked or harvested is you hear the blue jay fights going on. They're just constantly squawking and fighting over these little acorns. So a very nice tree. And you can see there in the spring, the catkins up in the right corner, that's the flowers that hang. So those are really ornamental in themselves. And then just a nice glossy green leaf, turns a yellow. I mean, not overly showy in the fall, but it's more about its toughness and just a really nice oak that isn't planted enough. All right, next up is black cherry. This one is renowned mostly because of the huge versatility. It is a larval host, a pollinator host, and a bird host. So it's threefold. So when it comes to planting for wildlife, this one has to be on the list. And it's in the prunus family. So prunus, again, is one of our capstone or our keystone species, our top 3 keystone species for our region here in the Midwest. The fall color is gorgeous. I mean, it's a really nice, like a translucent orange yellow. It's really unique in the fall color aspect. That's a little caterpillar. I think that's a swallowtail caterpillar there that we found in the hoop house. But very showy. The fruit is very high up. It's not, I've had people ask if it's messy like a mulberry, where, it's getting pooped out everywhere. And I would say definitely not. It's actually really hard to collect seed on this one because the fruit is thin, but it is there and it's pretty high up in the canopy. But the blooms are just gorgeous. So, it blooms about the same time as chokecherry, but definitely underutilized and not planted enough. So love this tree. You might hear me say that a lot, love this tree. I have a hard time not loving trees in general. I mean, there's a few I don't love, but I just love talking trees. American sycamore, love this tree. I love how much shade that this can cast out. One tree can shade multiple properties and provide energy savings for multiple properties. Granted, I know it's not meant for every place, but it is just a stunning tree, multi-faceted when it comes to multi-season interest. The size of the leaves are huge, as you can see there on the bottom right, but great shade. It can be drought tolerant, but it's very flood tolerant. You can see the seed balls there in the top that just kind of disperse out. So I wouldn't call it a messy tree other than the big leaves. But essentially, every tree has some level of mess, right? We tolerate our lawns, or people love their lawns, but I say we tolerate them by having to mow it. I mean, trees don't require that. They require mulching the leaves up in the fall. I mean, that's not that much, right? But the energy savings that they provide, the wildlife benefit, I mean, trees are just totally worth it, right? Totally worth it. But the white bark, that exfoliating bark, that's probably why it's most known. And its cousin, the European London plane tree, that exfoliating bark goes all the way to the ground. So oftentimes you'll see the white bark all the way to the ground, whereas American sycamores are more, they're darker to the base, maybe the bottom, 10 feet, and then they really start to exfoliate up in the top of the canopy there. So it's just gorgeous in the winter times. And I mean, great climbing trees if you leave them limbed low, or, provide some type of ladder to get up in there, but they make for really fun climbing trees. Dwarf chinkapin. So another oak. This is one that we're on the northwestern range of native range for this oak. It is considered a shrubby oak. Which is similar, like Gamble oak is also a shrubby oak, but it'll be multi-stemmed. We're working on some options for single-stemmed. They're showing us when we grow from seed, you can kind of start to select and sort things out for single-stem versus multi-stem. Multi-stemmed, very versatile in being large shrubs, great for windbreak plantings, wildlife plantings. They set their seed super young. So usually by age 3 or 4, you have seed production, which, wildlife people, hunters really love this one because of the amount of the mass production of acorns that you get on it. But what we're really trying to work on is a single stemmed option for dwarf chinkapin so that we can use it on smaller properties so that it can be, in an urban setting, you can add quercus, an oak to your property, but it only gets 10 to 15 feet tall. So what a nice alternative for maybe like a crabapple. I mean, I know it's not a total substitute for a crabapple, but a nice small option when it comes to a smaller property. Same thing, you'll get the catkins in the spring, nice little acorns. The multi-stem look is pretty cool. I mean, it's a large shrub, but and the fall color there, that's not consistent every year. I mean, this one was taken out on our farm. Some years it's more yellow. This particular year, they were stunning. And again, there's variables when it comes to moisture, things like that in the fall season. So, but gorgeous tree. Kelly already talked about the Kentucky coffee tree, and I'll just second that. Though maybe the only aspect I would add into it is to talk about the blooms, which are very much underlooked. You don't see it in bloom, you don't see the flowers, but you hear that it's in bloom because the bees and the pollinators are going crazy. So it's more about the buzz that surrounds this tree. And so it's definitely a pollinator host and widely preferred as a pollinator host. But I also really like the bark of it. It has a really unique like kind of scaling to it. You can see there in the bottom left, which makes it just very unique in the, and yes, I know, ugly duckling, totally agree with that comment. They don't start branching until they're a little bit older in age, but worth it. It's a very nice filtered shade. The leaves are not a mess at all. So if people ask for a less messy tree, you know, like definitely the opposite of a sycamore where you have that nice, you know, huge shade. This is a filtered shade and the leaves just disperse, you know, they're just gone. And keep in mind there's a raceme, so you have that center stem of the leaf and then the little leaflets, and those will start to fall off. But we've had customers call in early spring that say the branches are falling off my tree, and it's because the racemes will oftentimes hold on through the winter, and then as they start to fall, as the new buds are pushing, it looks disastrous. So it's just kind of a funny comment about this tree and the youth of it, but a very nice shade tree. Shellbark hickory, had to talk about this. And I love bitternut as well. I know Kent brought up the bitternut hickory. I love all hickory. So it was kind of hard to pick one. Shagbark is widely known because of the stunning bark, but this one is maybe a little bit more unknown, I would suppose. It is huge, 80 to 100 feet tall. This is a big guy, so it definitely needs an acreage or a farm setting, but it would be great for an arboretum or a park as well. The nuts on it are big. This is one of the biggest option for nuts, but the fall color is stunning. It's a really nice buttery yellow. The nuts are really cool. You know, it's just, I just love all hickories in general. I love that, the leaf, and they're all very similar. This is just a big guy. So worth noting. Princeton elm. This is a true American elm. That shows great resistance to Dutch elm disease. You know, there's a lot of the hybrid elms that are out on the market now, and they have a lot of breeding going on, different branch habits, things like that. I really prefer the American elm out of all of those options. Just because, you know, you got that bigger leaf, more controlled branching. They have, you know, that same vase shape, you know, with the upright branch angles, but they're not out of control. So I've been really impressed with the Princeton in particular. And we do grow one that originated in Hastings, Nebraska, that we call the Hastings American elm. And we get little seedlings from Bob at the Arboretum. And that's probably my absolute favorite elm, but the seed is inconsistent, so it's not one that we can consistently have available or can grow always. But the Princeton is my next favorite elm, just because it's a true American, provides great shade, that old vase shape that we just love. So it's an excellent shade tree and an option to add in that ulmus genus, you know, when we're looking to diversify for our communities. But just in a nice, tough tree. I mean, not overly showy. That fall color is, again, pretty inconsistent. It'll be yellow, but not anything showy the way like a honey locust just lights up the sky, you know, is like a highlighter. But, you know, same thing. We'll get fun little caterpillars on these guys. I don't remember now what the name of that one is because it's a really odd name and I forgot to write it down. But again, just a caterpillar we found growing on the elms. So again, showing us that it's a host.
Justin here. This is your gong warning. Gong.
Okay, yep, I'm on my last one. Oh, yeah, no, almost. American linden, that was already highlighted. Love this tree for the bee pollinator habitat. And an excellent shade tree, gumdrop, that gumdrop shape. And then I'll highlight the Taylor juniper, which I know the cedars have been talked about, eastern red cedar. This is a true eastern red cedar, native here from Nebraska. It was found near Taylor, Nebraska. And it just an excellent option when it comes to a tough upright. So many people ask for an alternative for arborvitae or to give them a little more uniformity. And this guy can tolerate anything. I mean, I've seen it along the north side of metal buildings in total shade, total muck, and it does great. I've seen it in total sand, it does great. Tolerates the snow load, bounces right back up. I'm continuously impressed by this plant. So just wanted an opportunity to promote an evergreen, I guess. So that's all for me.
Outstanding, Heather. I love
Sorry,
all
I
that.
talk fast.
You did good. You got through them. I love it. Thank you for that. And everywhere I go, I see trees with Great Plains Nursery tag on them. So you guys are getting trees out there. Thank you for being one of our good supporters and local producers that we don't have a whole lot of for native collected trees and seeds. I'll ask you one quick question. Somebody asked about the wahoo as a tree. Do you guys grow that and recommend
Yep.
it?
Yeah, I love Eastern Wahoo. Yep. What is it? Euonymus atropurpurea is an excellent small tree. It can be multi-stemmed or single-stemmed. We're working on it really hard with doing cuttings. Seed doesn't always come true, so it's hit and miss. When we do have them available, they fly out fast. But we're working on that one to really rev up numbers because it should be planted more. Great fall color, just a great small tree.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Deanna Fiala would be up next. We'll get you to share your screen. Deanna wears a lot of hats in Central Omaha. I know she's worked with Heather on planting trees in Central Omaha, part of the Neighborhood Alliance there, and then also the Urban Bird and Nature Group. Deanna, do you want to mention that as you get going here? Thank you for
Sure.
coming on, Deanna.
Of course. Thank you for having me. So yes, Justin, I am the executive director of the Urban Bird and Nature Alliance. Really, we should our early years included more bird seminars, but we've kind of come away from that. But anyway, we were one of the first nonprofits that was dedicated to revitalizing and sustaining the tree canopy in the city of Omaha in Douglas County. And we educate on the importance of healthy tree canopy in neighborhoods and schools. And since in the last 10 years, we've planted upwards of 5,000 plus trees, which kind of is scary when we look back. We have planted forests. We recently planted, or not forests, sorry, orchards. And we recently planted a little orchard in the Corinne Church property in Omaha, which was really so well received. And some of our neighborhoods, if the forestry department here knows that it will be taken care of in the neighborhood. So we work very closely with the city of Omaha. Everything is approved through the city. And as president of Midtown Neighborhood Alliance, the 17 key landmark historic districts in Midtown, we definitely have landmark trees. We definitely have storms that have come through that have, taken down our trees. And so we work closely to make sure that, that we have, that we're working with the city and we know what we're planting and where, And so with the Midtown program, we have the Midtown Retree program. And since 2009, the Midtown Retree program that we oversee, we've planted 2,500 trees. And so our numbers just keep growing, and it's not just a matter of numbers, but also what kind of trees and how well we're educating. And that curve in the neighborhood, that learning curve with neighbors, all wanting autumn blaze, let's say, or October glory. And we've come a long ways, in that education process. And so part of that is showing the pictures of the trees. Part of it is telling neighbors, this is what the tree is like. This is what it'll do. too. Some people just think that an autumn blaze is how they're going to get fall color and don't realize that a red oak will give them similar color as well, even though it's very different. But anyway, we have planted catalpas. We have planted the chinkapins. We're going to do more of them. I love the elms, Princeton. We've planted many of those. The Kentucky coffee, one of my favorites, low maintenance, and it is a good urban site tree. White oak, red oaks for sure. We've done Shumart, shingle oaks, scarlet oaks, not quite as often with the scarlet oaks, but we have. Bald cypress, aspen, poplar trees. We have planted some of the maples, the red maples and such. The trees that we haven't planted so much that I'd like to plant soon, if we can, are some of the little leaf lindens or some of the lindens, period. And we have planted evergreens, and I think we need to plant more. It's hard along right-of-ways. We don't plant evergreens, but in the parks, we definitely do. And in entrances to neighborhoods that would like them. The golden rain trees, I think, are beautiful. UNO has a whole strip of them. I office at the UNO Community Engagement Center in South Campus, just the golden rain tree. Well, there's not a whole strip, but there's maybe 3 or 4 that looks like a whole strip, though, a whole row of trees. So beyond that, and the shagbark hickory, it is underplanted, and I'd love to plant more shagbark. People ask for it. Bemis Park has been wanting to plant some shagbark hickory. So I guess we kind of all have some similar trees that we definitely love. And then we, as the Urban Nature Alliance, we have received the Community Enhancement Award twice, and maybe even 3 times, I think. And so I thank you, Forestry, for that as well. So today I went off the grid. Justin said I could, so what the heck? And I'm going to talk just a little bit about, this is what we do in the city, and I'm going to try to relate back to our city planning, but also talk about fairy tales and some folklore and trees that I've always loved in fairy tales. And you can't have a forest without a fairy tale that goes with it. So I'm not going to read all of my slides because they kind of intensely hold a lot of information. But if you think of Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella and Little Red Riding Hood and Snow White and Hansel and Gretel and Sleeping Beauty, we could just go on and on. The old woman that lived in the forest alone and more. And the forest, to me, it is mystical to me. I have yet to spend a whole night in a forest. I think that might be on a bucket list with Michael, but we'll probably scare each other too much, so I don't know. But it is very common in fairy tales, and it is a place beyond the safety and familiarity of the town or village. It represents the unknown, where anything can happen, and it's out of the normal experience, both magical realm and a place of danger. So the hazel tree, I chose a couple trees that I didn't know much about.
Deanna?
Pardon?
Deanna, can you share your screen?
Yes, I can share my screen, and I thought I was.
Oh,
So sorry.
that's all right.
Oh, man. Okay, so now, just when we don't have time, right?
You're doing fine.
I think I might need a little help with this.
You see the green share button down at the bottom?
Yeah, it's not coming up for me. Because I see it, but no one else does. Goodness gracious.
And you might have to just share your.
I'm going to end the show and I'll go back to sharing. Hang on. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, there we go.
All right, now we're cooking.
All right, thanks. We did this
Love it.
before.
Yes.
All right, there we go. So there's that mystical, mythical, magical forest. The hazel tree, I didn't know much about, so I pushed myself to do some research, and I've never planted a hazel tree. So in folklore, Cinderella's father gives her a twig from the hazel tree, and she plants it near her mother's grave and waters it with her tears. It quickly grows into a tree which shelters a little white bird who gives Cinderella what she asks for. So the hazel trees have been known to symbolize protection, wishes, magical birds which make dreams come true, and in folklore, hazel trees are believed to have magical properties that ward off evil spirits, but you can't wear it around your neck. So the hazel tree in Cinderella grew into a tree filled with magical birds that protected her and granted her wishes. And the birds helped Cinderella with her task and warned the prince about their stepsister. Deception. The hazel trees, they are native to eastern Nebraska. And I did read that they grow here in abundance and thrive in moist, well-drained loam soil in sun or partial shade. I think, they're fast growing. Some sources said medium, but 12 to 24 inches in a season is fast growing to me. And if coppiced, so if anyone wants to ask about coppicing, I can tell you. But I didn't know what coppicing was. And hazels can live for several hundred years if coppiced. And coppicing basically involves cutting down a tree to its natural base and allowing it to reshoot to multiple stems. And after 7 to 20 years, the stems can be cut and cycled, restored again. And the stumps are called stools if trees are coppiced, which allows for repeat harvest on set cycles. Ash, elder, sweet, chestnut, and hazel are coppiced trees. They have a smooth gray brown bark, which peels with age, but they do display a bright red or orange dull yellow leaves in the fall. They produce tasty nuts. One of them is Nutella, chocolate and hazelnut spread that people are well aware of. The nuts are also known as cob nuts and filberts, according to the species. And some nuts, like cashews, can be poisonous if eaten raw, but the hazelnuts are edible in their natural state. Both the milky white hazelnut and its brown papery skin are both edible. And if you roast it, it enhances the flavor. They're a good source of food for deer, wild turkey, woodpeckers, squirrels, and pheasants. And so next is the real 100-acre wood of A.A. Milne, Alan Alexander Milne, who was the author of Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh was written in 1926. Milne came back after the war and went walking a lot through his nearby forest and on his own property, which was really 500-acre wood. An old sycamore suggests where Christopher Robin lived, and that's him in the tree there. And a towering walnut tree, the arboreal abode of Pooh himself. And Pooh teaches us love, forgiveness, patience, truth, and acceptance. And you can see he lived in that tree, in that walnut tree, under the name Sanders, which was supposed to be his previous owner. Pooh Corner is situated on the edge of the Ashton Forest, East Sussex, and Hartfield. And the classic stories came to life for that short walk away in the 100-acre woods. And so A.A. Milne used much of the landscape for creating Pooh and throughout the stories. And along the path, you'll see, if you follow the path, there are pine trees, and there's reference to the pine trees that were all in a grove. Piglet's house is a grand house in a beech tree, and he eats acorns called haycorns. Owl lives in a very tall tree. We're not sure which tree that is, but the bee tree proves to be a challenge, and that's at the top if you can see it. By its shape, I'm not so sure. Kelly mentioned lindens. Heather mentioned Kentucky coffees that really attract the bees, and Pooh got in trouble with them, of course, but I think that just might be a Kentucky coffee tree if you use your imagination. And so sycamore trees, one of my favorites. I won't read that, of course, and it's been talked about a few times, but again, I love the bark. It's very drought tolerant. I know it can be prone to anthracnose, but from what I know, it's a fungal disease and it may hit during moist springs, but usually is forgotten by summer, and mainly cosmetic. And so I think that sycamores, we plant them, we've planted them through Midtown Neighborhood Alliance, we've planted them through the Urban Nature Alliance. A lot of them in the parks. Every once in a while, I know a homeowner is a tree lover when they want one somewhere in their front yard and they have the space for all the shade, and then we can plant them, the plane tree or the sycamore. And wild birds, and you'll see the list there, absolutely love them, and they make excellent nesting as well. Very adaptable. The black walnut, I didn't know a whole lot about. We've never planted a black walnut tree. And so again, there was a push to learn a little bit more about them. And I love that they can be 8 feet thick trunks and can live to 200 years, which is wonderful. And that's a great spread. And it's the black walnut. I think Pooh lived in the English walnut tree, but that the nuts are softer and easier to crack, but the black walnuts are not. They're harder. And I found that they are so hard that they're used in sandblasting to clean ships and jet engines. Don't know, I've never heard that, but I recently read about that, which is amazing if they're that hard. It's by far the hardiest and the most adaptable. Definitely grows in Nebraska and native to much of central and eastern as well. And so it's very rich. It bears fruit within 5 years and a great source of antioxidants and also polyunsaturated fats. But it's really prized for its lumber uses for furniture, wooden bowls, sculptures, floors, flooring. Heartwood is dark tan with beautiful tones when it's polished, and the trees are very valuable for their lumber. Late 70s, a black walnut fetched a sum of $35,000 is what I read on one of the sites, on the forestry site. So the roots do exude chemicals that can inhibit the growth of other plants, but so don't plant a vegetable garden near a black walnut tree. But otherwise, they're a great tree.
Deanna, we got about 2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right. Well, here's Merlin's oak. King Arthur's advisor and wizard mentor lived until the end of time in an oak tree as he aged backwards. I'd love to age backwards. Merlin was a prophet and a magician in the enchanted forest of Broceliand. There is that enchanted forest, but there isn't a real one for Merlin. But Merlin, he reintegrated into the community of the forest, and Arthur went to the forest to find Merlin, who taught him about nature and life, learned about life through nature and through trees. And after Arthur's death, some suggested that Merlin was enchanted in love and imprisoned by the Lady of the Lake to be trapped inside a tree forever. So we love Merlin. And then I was going to talk about oak trees, but we did cover them as well. And I think that we have planted the swamp oak. There's a champion tree in Elmwood Park that's I think 150 years old. And the red oak is one of our favorites that we plant a lot of as well. And we said the rest. There's some of the oldest oaks. I think the bur oak, the old wolf in Ponca State Park is one of the oldest. It core dated to a seedling in 1644, which makes it 132 years older than the United States. I'd love to see some of these trees. I know I'd love to go to Sherwood Forest. I haven't yet, but we'll make it there. Hopefully the tree will still be there. Serviceberry, very popular. We plant them a lot under our utility wires and in Omaha, along with ivory silks, along with royal raindrops, prairie fire, because they don't grow so tall and we can clear the lines as well. And so they're medium growth rate, and we already talked about the birds that love the serviceberries, and people love them for their yards as well. And my favorite are Christmas trees because I absolutely love Christmas. It's my last slide. We always buy a Fraser fir. Sometimes we've come out of the comfort zone and gone with the concolor fir and different ones, but the Fraser firs are very strong. They're a little bit more expensive. The Douglas fir is not quite as expensive. But our Christmas trees, and sometimes we're now buying them so that we can plant them. They're not cut down trees. They're still in their containers. So that's it for me. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if we went over. I know that we kind of had a
I
lot to
love
say.
it, Deanna. I love that whimsical look. Thank you for wrapping it up with that. Yeah, right. Trees are a part of our lore, and we got to remember that it's not just something to plant and shade us, but wow, we connect to history through them and literature and all kinds of cool things. So, yeah, and you've done so much. How many 5,000 trees in central Omaha?
Now in a 10-year period, yes.
Yeah. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, you should take a nap.
That's for the urban bird, and then for the Urban Bird and Nature Alliance, and then for Midtown, another 2,500. Did you say I should take a nap?
Yeah, you got retired after planting all those trees. So
Okay, it sounds good to me.
I'm gonna take a nap here shortly, but hey, did we see any questions, guys, on the comments that anybody needs to have answered here? I think we've been doing that in the comments. We're running a little long, so I don't want to keep people too long. Thank you guys all so much for taking time today and being a part of this. I learned a lot, and it's just fun to see how people connect to trees a little bit differently from person to person. And any last comments? Graham, are you on? Do you want to mention that you've got workshops coming up?
I sure can. Yeah, we're going to be in Hardington, Norfolk, and then Ord on March 25th, 26th, 27th. I don't have the link handy, but you can go to the Nebraska Forest Service Eventbrite page to find those, or just get a hold of me or Justin directly if you need more information about that. Oh, Ben's on it. There's a link right there in the chat for our Forest Service Eventbrite page. You can see my workshops as well as Chrissy's there and everything else we've got going on.
What a great group of people today. Thank you all. I'll ask one question to all of you still on, Heather, Deanna, Steve, Kelly. Somebody asked, how close should we plant our oak trees together? What's the opinion here? Do you like to plant them tight or give them lots of room?
Like
I
what
tend to
Kent said on
plant
there.
tight. Oops, sorry.
Sorry, Deanna, go ahead.
I tend to plant a little tighter than most people, but with the oaks, I'd give them some extra room. Yeah.
That sounds smart. What about you, Heather?
I like the way Kent responded with you can mimic what is going on in nature. I mean, it's just the look that you're going for. You can plant them as close as 10 feet apart and they work together as a community. So what was one tree can become three working together that can hold up for snow load, ice load, wind load. It's just trees aren't meant to be single, other than savanna trees are meant to be single, but they're not meant to be telephone poles out. They work together as a community, and even underground, they'll work together as a community. So I like the way that Kent responded with that. Though standard park planning is what, 35 feet apart, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd put them together.
I love it. Steve, you've planted them. I like that Concord Arboretum where they're all touching each other and so many species right together.
Yeah, I like to plant the trees in kind of groupings. I call them islands within the grassed landscape. So they're grouped together. But I think the important thing too with the oaks or the other trees, plant them close together, maybe on two different sides, but have one or two sides maybe that are open to be able to get some sun. So one stuck right in the very middle will probably be suffering, but the other ones, should fill out their foliage.
Good stuff. What about you, Kelly? Plant 'em tight?
Ditto. I don't think I can say anything better than what Heather and Steve added. I agree. It does kind of depend on the function and the use and what where they're being planted and so on.
Right. Very good. Sounds like somebody who's pretty knowledgeable. All of you guys are so smart about this. We've gone a little long. I don't want to keep you on any longer than we need to. I'd ask you 100 questions if I could. But it's a Friday afternoon. We'll let you go here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and especially thank you, our panelists, for being on top of this. We're going to do it again for Western Nebraska in August, so come back and listen to some fun voices from way out west. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Our pleasure.